There we go. Yes.
Okay, alignment is my life. I used to do this.
Okay, so
Something. I don't know.
Well, because it's not centered.
Yeah, but can't you just move the camera? Just move the camera.
No,
The camera.
it's on an angle because the table's not right. So we're doing it from the right
Do you have
side.
any shims on you?
is it running?
You would, you know. I'm going to bankrupt Monty Hall. Let's see. Give me a toothpick. Give me a shim. You'd have it all.
I wish I had a shed.
Okay, so it's hard to remember sometimes from last week to this week what we ended up last week. But we were talking about holding in the Hilchos Meisser, taking off Meisser, and we discussed, I think last week we went through a little more of the how you take off. Actually, I saw, just as a hemshech of it, we discussed three shittas. It's Chiv D'Oraisa, if it's a Chiv D'Rabbanan or a Minig, and most shittas hold it's a Minig to take off Meisser. We'll see the nafkamina soon. It's a Minig, which we said this Minig started all the way back from Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. There's a sefer called Meisser Ksafim, very well done sefer on Hilchos Meisser, and he brings down all the takonos throughout the times, takana Shum, you know, of the different cities of Meisser, all the cities back then in Rishonim's time, and in the takonos, he calls the takonos the cities had, and part of it was that half of the Meisser of each individual went to the city's coffers, you know, for them to give out to Aniyim or to whatever necessity of the city. Chatzi Isa they called it, but it was all part of all the takonos. In other words, it was quite clear everybody was giving Meisser, and they forced half of that Meisser they left for you to give out whatever you want to give. The other half actually was collected and distributed, which I think would be an excellent idea for Toronto. The Meisters wouldn't have to suffer the way they do. But you see, the concept of Meisser goes quite far back. In any case, that we discussed last week, taking off from the Revachim, and I'm sure more shouts will come up as we go along. But I wanted to go into this week a very basic shaila in Hilchos Meisser. You have the Ramah. It goes like this in Reish Mem Tes, in the beginning of Reish Mem Tes. So it says like this. The Ramah says, "Ve'ein lasos mi Meisser shaloi dvar mitzvah." A person shouldn't do with his Meisser a dvar mitzvah. Could go in Neiris or Beis HaKnesses. You know, Neiris for the shul should have light. Neiris, they used to donate the candles. Bashar dvar mitzvah. Rak yitnenu laniyim. Maril. This is from the Maril Hilchos Rosh Hashanah. That the Meisser money shouldn't be used for mitzvah purposes. It should be used for aniyim. It should be used for aniyim. So Ramah brings this down, halacha l'maisa. Now, the Taz says two things here, which we'll have to get into. First thing he says is, kol shechen, you can't use it to pay taxes. Even though taxes were used for tzedakah purposes. The taxes were used for social, you know.
These are general taxes or community taxes?
Community taxes. They were used for the tzorchei ir. We'll get back to that soon. Then he says, "Linyan liknas mitzvah Beis HaKnesses b'mois Meisser." So the Taz says like this: well, if you want to buy a mitzvah you want to buy an aliyah or something, Beis HaKnesses with the money of Meisser, nearly that if at the time you bought the mitzvah your das was to use mois Meisser, it's mutter because the money goes to tzedakah. Okay, we'll come back to that too. And then he says, Kosav bedrisha b'shem tshuvas Mara Menachem shemuta listein min ha'maiser liyas bal bris. They used to pay to be a sandik. So you want to buy the sandik, you know, it's a good business. The guy has kids, you know, he has to make money. So he would sell the sandikais. So you're allowed to give money to be the bal bris or lahachnes chasim l'chuppah. To be the one to walk down the chasim, I guess. Or liknei svarim l'omei or to buy svarim to learn with them. You need svarim. You want to learn, you need svarim. Svarim are cheaper today than it used to be. It's hard to get svarim. So you would pay your mice money to buy yourself some svarim. Huh? They'll learn. And then you lend it to other people also to learn. Just keep it for yourself. If you can't do it another way. Then when you buy the Svarim, you have to... Somebody say, okay, so this becomes a whole shaila here. When are you allowed to use Meisser money for mitzvah purposes, or when are you not allowed to use it for mitzvah purposes? So the Pischei Tshuva here on Shulchan Aruch also spends quite a bit of time on this. Yeah.
So who was it that started off by saying you can't use Meisser for...
The Ramah. The Ramah Shulchan Aruch brings from Maril, you can't.
Except for buying an aliyah?
No, he says you can't.
Oh, he can't.
The Taz brings down,
Okay.
some you could. So the Ber HaGoyla brings down over here. Ber HaGoyla says that okay. So we'll see. So the question is like this: the Maram basically the Ramah brings down the Maril that you're not allowed to use it for mitzvahs. And the Shach actually brings from Mashal and the Drisha from Maram, the same Maram the Rataz brought, that you're allowed to use it for mitzvahs. So the question is, how do you reconcile the two? So there are many, many different ways in the Achronim to navigate this. And it comes out a lot of different nafkaminas, l'halocha. Okay? So, actually, Tzitz Eliezer spends 3 simonim on this, trying to explain different avenues when you could use it and when you can't use it for. So, first some want to say, well, it depends. Some Seif in one Shuba wants to say, it depends depends what the Chiyuv of Meisser is again. If the Chiyuv of Meisser is a Daraisa, so it depends what the Torah set aside the Meisser for. I can't stop buying mitzvahs with it. It's Daraisa, I can't do what I want. If it's just a minhag, even if it's Rabbanon, maybe it's a chiyuv on me. If it's a chiyuv on me, I can't do what I want with that money. Just to buy mitzvahs with it, it has to go for aniyim. But if it's a minhag, so then I could still have the minhag the way I want to do it. In other words, it's only an accepted upon minhag that I accept upon myself. So if I accept upon myself the minhag in a certain way, I'm allowed to do it. That's one thing that some Sefer says. Others say, well, even if it's a Rabbanon, a chiyuv, but we had different sources for the mitzvah. One is from Meisser. We learn out of Meisser Scheiner. Meisser Scheiner, you didn't give to the Aniyim. The Aniyim, you only gave the Meisser once every 3 years. The Meisser Scheiner, actually, you took it yourself and you went up to Yerushalayim and you ate in Yerushalayim. Now, you might have had a lot of money bringing up to Yerushalayim, so you would make a party and invite maybe Aniyim, maybe you would invite your good friends to come join the party. So you invite people to join you, but it was a mitzvah. You brought the money to Yerushalayim, you ate in Yerushalayim. So Lav Dafka Meisser means it has to go to Aniyim. The Tziv says, if you learn it out from there, then it can go to other places. If you say it's part of Hilchas Staka, which we discussed last week, the Machlekes Ramah and Meisser, if it's part of Mitzvah Staka, then Staka should go to Aniyim. So there's one question. One question is when Chazal designated a Mitzvah of Meisser, what was the intention of that money? That's A. And B, when I accept upon myself the Mitzvah of Meisser, possibly I could accept it according to certain rules. So that's one svara. But there's other mahalchim here. Okay, so let's see. So you have another shaila here like this. Another 2 shailas. So one is it's Eliezer goes at length like this, and he brings it from Chassam Sofer and from others. Many say like this. Many say, well, we can miyashiv the stira. We can answer the kasha. In other words, you have some that are saying here you can't use it for mitzvah, you can't use it for neiros beis haknesses. You have others saying that you could buy an aliyah, and you could give it to the Baal Bris, you could buy some dekois with it, and you could buy the schus to walk the chassan down. I got to make a chasana, I got to sell the schusim, I'll pay for the wedding. So you could do that. So he says very poshut. He says like this. He says everybody agrees the money has to go to the aniyim. But I'm allowed to get Toivus Hano from Meisser. In other words, I'm allowed to get a benefit from Meisser. Hashem gave you the money for you to give out to Meisser. So you're allowed to get benefit from it. It's not you're selling the money to the Aniyah, but you're giving it, but you're getting a benefit from it. So I'm allowed to go and give it to a Baal Bris. It's talking about a Baal Bris. That's an ani. That the money is going to go to aniyim, or the money will go to Talmidei Chachamim, or the money will go to a purpose of Meisser. But I'm allowed to, in the process, use it, the aliyah. I'm giving it to the shul, and the shul uses it for the tzedakah fund. He says it's talking about the shul uses it for the tzedakah fund. So I'm buying an aliyah with it, and then, so the money is ending up where it's supposed to end up, and I'm just using it. This is my way of giving the money. My way of giving the money is if I get some cover along the way, and I get an aliyah, or I get a schus along the way, I get an aliyah, or whatever it is that he wants to try to get with it. So that would be a way of answering the shaila. So in other words, everybody agrees according to this opinion that the money has to end up by the aniyim, or by Meisser purposes, but along the way, I could sort of finagle at different things what I want to get. So Eliezer spends a long time proving this shita.
You argue neighbors for the shul.
So neighbors for the shul is neighbors for the shul. That's it, all it is. It's just giving light. So it's not going for aniyim. If it's poor people are learning by it, maybe one could argue that it's being used for aniyim. But otherwise, it's for straight mitzvah purpose.
Takes away the expense from the shul. Don't tell me there's always shuls all over the
Expense
place.
of the shul are the rich people supporting the shul.
Okay,
Because
and
a lot
if the
of
shul
it's
is
going for aniyim.
barely, whatever, is it called Meisser because they don't have that expense now?
So again, if we're saying a dvar mitzvah, according to this shita, Meisser is not used for a dvar mitzvah, so that wouldn't work. If it's that's what he says. According to this mahalach, it's not going for a dvar mitzvah at the end. It's not enough. It has to actually end up by aniyim. But you could do a mitzvah. You could get a mitzvah while you're ending it up while it ends up going for aniyim. That's what it says. So the question is, okay, so why is the maram matter to buy svarim? I remember I used to learn in the Yeshiva Staten Island. So there was a Yiddish tzaddik there, whatever his name was. So he was a younger man, a poor guy. In those days, to be a younger man, you had to be quite poor. He was a younger man for many, many years sitting and learning. And they had no money. And but he used to use all his Meisser money. He wanted to take off Meisser. I don't know if he was Mechayev, but he used all his Meisser money to buy svarim. Half the svarim lying around in the yeshiva were his svarim. They're lying under the tables, over the tables, in the closets, and the classrooms. He had svarim coming out of his nose, and they were all from his Meisser. He said he wanted to do Meisser, but he couldn't afford to support the world. But he liked to learn, so he bought svarim. And he left him. He left him in the yeshiva. Anybody could use him. His svarim has a name in it. Anybody in the world could use him. And they stayed around there.
And all he learns from one of
This
them.
is the maram. Yeah. So the maram says that. So why are you allowed to buy svarim? So he says what you're saying, because he's lending it to people that need it. Poor people that can't afford svarim that need it. So he has a svarim gemach for poor people that can't afford it. So maybe that goes with chalal and giving it to an ani, even though technically he's getting out of it also. But many other people argued on this head of using
But that's only the svarim. That's only the svarim are in Rishus Harabim.
Or if you keep it at home and you lend it out, also. Let's say I have a gemach, I lend out money. I keep it at home, I lend it out. I have a svarim gemach,
People buy svarim, right? Lashem Aretz Umloy. It's starting in the shtiv, I mean, I don't know how often.
According to this, you would have to lend it out to specific people that need it. In need, you're right.
If you bought it with Meisser.
The Aruch HaShulchan doesn't like this heter of svarim. He says, "Im kain mishim matu a guy to buy tefillin. He needs tefillin. Let him buy tefillin. He Meisser and his talis and all his tzaka, all his personal mitzvah needs. He'll start his lulav and esrog. He can start buying all from Meisser money. Matzahs will buy from his Meisser money. What's going to be with Daniyim? Daniyim aren't going to get anything. He's going to be busy buying mitzvahs. So, Eidachanami. We're saying now that the only way you could use it, according to Eliezer, is you can only use it. It's based on Chasam Sefer. The only way you can use it is if he uses it if it ends up by aniyim. Matzah that he's going to eat himself, tefillin that he's going to wear himself. That's not a heter. But if he wants to buy his neighbor tefillin that could use tefillin, okay, that's a whole different story.
If
That's
he's an ani.
What? If he's an ani, yeah, he's an ani.
Well, it's called matzah ani, so we're all in him at that time. Matzah ani.
Oh. B'chalal, this whole shaila is the poskim handle. If you're allowed to buy, there's another. So let me just end this off here. So you have 3 shitas that comes out over here. You have one shita that you're allowed to buy that moist Meisser could go for mitzvah purposes. There's one shita that holds moist Meisser could go for mitzvah purposes. If you learn the Maram Mitzvah Pshutai, so Machlokes, he argues on the Ramah, he argues on the Maril. Maril holds it has to go to Aniyim, and Maram Mitzvah holds no, you could use it for mitzvah purposes. The other shita is that you can't use it for mitzvah purposes. It has to go to Aniyim, but the pshat would be that you're allowed to buy a mitzvah if the money ends up by Aniyim. That would be the heter. Now, there is another chiluk that Chassam Sofer makes to Miyashav the steer. In other words, really, technically, you would be able to give the Meisser for tzedakah for mitzvah purposes. But once it was separated, it's worse. So in other words, before I separate the Meisser, I say I'm going to use this for mitzvah that I could do. But once I sort of put it in the Meisser account, once I put the money in the Meisser account, Zochu Be'aniyim.
So you have to have the dust before you put it in.
Before you put it in. Once I put it in, it's Zochu Be'aniyim. And once the Aniyim are Zoich in it, I have no right to go ahead and change it and use it for a different purpose. So that is another pshat in the Chassam Sofer. So in other words, what he answers, he says what the Maril means over here is, when he says, Ein lasos mi Meisser shelo devar mitzvah, that means Meisser that was already separated and set aside, and the stam Meisser was for Aniyim, and I want to use that money for a Dvar Mitzvah, that's a no, because the Aniyim are losing out. You're taking their money and you're doing it for Mitzvah.
But if you have in mind, when you put in the money, this
yeah,
is
if this
not
fund
for
is
Meisser,
not for...
I just need a place to put this money right now.
Yeah, if you set it aside l'tchila that you can use it for Mitzvah, so that you would be allowed to do. That's another way of being miyasher of the stira.
What about not for a mitzvah, just plain? I'm holding this money here, it's not Meisser, and I had in mind that it's not, even though it's going to my account. You need to do a mitzvah with it, or you can do anything.
I don't know what that means. If you're taking off Meisser, it's going to Meisser.
Right, but I have money I needed in the bank, I couldn't get to my other bank, I'm putting it in today.
That's
It's
something
not
else.
Meisser money.
That's something else. You're not putting Meisser. But if you're putting aside, we're talking you're putting aside for Meisser. Okay, so that's the shaila if you're using it. So another part of the shaila is a very important factor over here. Using money for mitzvah purposes, and there's a lot of svarim that actually talk about the shaila, whether I could buy my yesrik for Meisser money. Okay, the shaila in the Beersheba. A lot of places can talk about this. Could I buy mitzvahs? In other words, I went to the store. I bought it. I was going to buy it.
How's the Yanni going to benefit from you buying your esrog?
It won't benefit. This
Unless he's selling it to you.
Oh, you're...
No, this okay, that's a good point. But this sheet is going, let's say according to the sheet, I'm allowed to buy a mitzvah. I'm allowed to buy mitzvahs with Meisser money.
But did you say that either case, if you're going to use it as a mitzvah, it's got to end up with an ani?
So there's 3 sheetas, we said. One sheet holds you could do mitzvahs with Meisser money.
Oh, okay.
One sheet holds it goes to Aniyim, and one sheet is answering it by saying that as long as it ends up by Aniyim, I can buy mitzvahs. We'll see halacha l'maisa at the end. We'll come out what you could do. But these are different sheetas. So there's another question involved over here. Okay, so the Beersheba and others talk about the shaila about the guy goes to a store and esrog course, he could buy an esrog $60. Then he sees a beautiful esrog for $100. He says, look, the Yitzhahara is one side, $100. So he comes to an eitzah. Look, I can't afford $100. I can't afford $100, but I have Meisser money. I'm going to take the Meisser money and I'll add $40. The whole esrog I'm not going to buy from Meisser money. I'll add on the $40 from the Meisser to buy the esrog. Now, what's the cheshbon? Where's he coming from? It's coming from like this. There's a halacha kol davar shebachayva, something which you're mechuyev to do, you cannot use Meisser money from. In other words, if I have a chiyuv to do something, I have a chiyuv to wear tefillin. Now I'm going to go ahead and buy tefillin for Meisser money. I have a chiyuv. Meisser is something I'm giving beyond my chiyuv. Just like I have to eat breakfast every morning, so I can't, it's a mitzvah to eat. Chavova says a person has to be healthy, so I use my Meisser money for that. You can't. Something which you have a chiyuv to do anyways, you cannot use your Meisser money for that. So even though maybe possibly I can use Meisser money for a mitzvah, that's a mitzvah which I'm not going to do if I don't if I'm not going to be able to use my Meisser money from it? You know, I don't have to buy the Sefer to be able to learn. I'll learn what I have at home. Okay, so that now there's a need to use Meisser money. But something which I'm going to do anyways, everybody has a chiyuv to buy a lulav and esrog. He has to be yotzei the mitzvah. L'chem, has to be yours. Everybody has to eat matzah. So now he's going to go ahead and use his Meisser money for that. That's poshut that he can't. The question is, could he add on? I'm not going to do that. This is something I'm not going to do. So are you allowed to add on to the
Right.
in order to do the mitzvah better? Possibly, I could add on to it. So. That's a shiloh. So
What's the argument in favor of adding on to it? How's that benefit an oni?
It's not in this case.
this is not benefiting Ani. This is not going to benefit Ani. This is just according to the shittas that you could do a mitzvah from it.
It's almost the called homer, isn't it? If I can't use it, a difference between doing. Let's say I have no money to buy a little Meisser, and I have to use this money, or I don't get through the mitzvah. I still can use Meisser money to buy a little Meisser because I'm chiyuv to the mitzvah anyway.
Well, it's like this: if the guy Taka has no money,
Right.
the guy Taka has no money and can't do the mitzvah because he has no money, then he's lagara from an ani. That karb we said before, and a person's own needs comes before other people's needs. So there's no questions he is allowed to use the money to buy his. If a guy Taka is not making it, you can't make it. Taka can't afford it. Okay, if the guy can afford the Danish for breakfast, but the other things he can't afford, there's a kasha. But the guy Taka can't afford it. He can't afford to do the mitzvah. Then there's no question he's allowed to use the Meisser money for himself because he's legara from the next guy that can't afford it to allowed to pay for.
Every mitzvah is a chiyuv, so how did you get around that? That sheet that says if it ends up with an ani, but you said a chiyuv. No, every mitzvah is a chiyuv. It won't be a mitzvah otherwise. So how did you do the two together?
But in this case, that's how to do a mitzvah, but a hider mitzvah. No?
This is a hider mitzvah, but
Yeah,
this
but
is the
the
mitzvah
mitzvah
itself. I have a
alone.
chiv to do the mitzvah itself. It's true. If I have a chiv to do the mitzvah and I can't afford it, so there's no question that he's allowed to use the Meisser money for. We said the sheet of the Tashbats that a person should set aside the Meisser. If a guy can't afford Meisser, he should set aside the Meisser and then use. If he needs for himself, he can take it for himself.
Even the var chiyuv.
Even for Zvachir, he can't afford it. That's legara from anybody else that can't afford it. But we're talking about a guy that could afford it. He'd just, rather not afford it. He'd rather use the Meisser money for it because it's a mitzvah. So
You can't, it's not a chiyuv.
okay, let me just say this. So he could afford it. So he'd rather use it. Now he can't afford the extra $40 for the esrog because his car will break tomorrow. He'll pay the money to fix his car. Just the pshat is that he normally wouldn't spend that kind of money. He's not living a luxury life. He normally wouldn't spend to get a Luxus esrog. He wouldn't spend the money, right? He would take the regular, let the gewehr down the block at the expensive esrog. He wouldn't do it. But in this case, he wants to do it, and he has Meisser. So is he allowed to do it? This is a shiloh. This is the shiloh. So,
Yeah, but if
I
it
missed a
does
little
have
bit.
money-
What about on Sephirim?
so on Sfarim also. So Sfarim he's going to use for other people. He's going to let other people use the Sfarim. To buy for himself is not so simple, but he's going to buy Sfarim
Yeah.
and leave it in a public place for people to use.
Yeah.
So that's better. Other people are being nana from it.
What about if he has Sephirim in the house?
So that's not so good. It's just for himself.
It
Yeah.
should be on it.
Right. Okay, so this is a shiloh. Yeah. So at the end of the day, the Aruch HaShulchan doesn't like this. The Aruch HaShulchan says he doesn't understand how he can use the money for that. But the Meisser, it's beforish in the Rosh Hashanah comes out that you could do it. You could use money for mitzvah purposes, according to that shita. According to that shita, you would be allowed to use it for mitzvah purposes as long as it's not a chiyuv. Something which you have a chiyuv to do, you would not necessarily be allowed. You have a chiyuv anyways, but something which is not a davar shebachayva, then possibly you'd be able to add on from your Meisser money. Now, having said that, in the end of the day, it's not really l'chatchila. I said before, for a person to use it for his own purposes, it's not really l'chatchila. It's not really l'chatchila. But we said last week that his Meisser is midah beinanus, right? We said the midas of a guy wants to be mahadar and do the mitzvah staka properly. The midah is a chaimish, to give a chaimish. So that's two Meissers. And we said we should actually take off two separate Meissers. Take off Meisser and then another Meisser for the chaimish. The chaimish amount, that amount l'chatchila, you can use it for these kind of purposes. So in other words, there's a much looser. Way of using the money. We're talking about the chaimish, which is the added amount to the Meisser itself. The Meisser itself should be used l'chatchila for aniyim and for those kind of purposes. But the chaimish, if a person wants to add on chaimish and do the mitzvah mamish ketikuna, the 100%, so that extra money he could be much more loose with and use it for other purposes.
So, I'm sorry to interrupt. I understand there are three shitas. What is the svara for using Meisser money for a mitzvah when it's so clear what Meisser money is supposed to be for?
It's not so clear. The answer is it's not so clear what it's supposed to be for. That's what I'm saying. There are different shitas what the Meisser money is supposed to be for. There are all kinds of Meissers. There was Meisser Koy and Levi. There was Meisser to bring to Yerushalayim, and there's Meisser Aniyim. And the question is, the money Meisser, what's the purpose of the money Meisser?
So today we've taken all these Meissers and we've lumped it all into one, either 10% or a chaimish, and that's...
And that Meisser is used for many different purposes. So the question is, at the end of the day, what could I use it for? It's not so straightforward what I could use it for.
If it was strictly for an ani, then how would you? Most people wouldn't support a Meisser because you wouldn't be able to, right? I mean, it would be a problem.
Okay, so we're going to get to a Meisser, what that gets under, what a Meisser gets under. You're right, you're asking like this. You're asking, if it's strictly for aniyim, you can't give money for Talmud Torah either. Why can you give money, let's say a guy's an usher, Talmud Torah. So you're giving towards that also, so are you allowed to use the money for that? So in a chanami, if the purpose of stock is for aniyim, so then you wouldn't be able to give it even for Talmud Torah and other things. But if the purpose of Meisser is for mitzvahs also, so Talmud Torah is connected kulam. Talmud Torah is connected kulam. So. So at the end of the day, for Talmud Torah, it's usually not such a shaila today. Usually the money is going for Talmud Torah is ending up by aniyim, or for purpose of aniyim.
Never met a rich Rebbe.
And what?
I never met a rich
Never
Rebbe.
met a rich Rebbe, yeah. It doesn't happen that often. So, but you could have an example like this. You could have, let's say you have, and it's very common to shaila. Let's say you have a person that doesn't want his kid to sit and learn. Doesn't want his kid to sit and learn. Doesn't want his son to go to school, to go to Yiddish Cheder. Okay? I could tell you when the URA organization, URA is big and famous all over the world. When it opened up, Chaim Mintz opened up his organization. It wasn't called URA then, it was called Kiruv V'Chaiken. He went knocking door to door in New Jersey. He knocked on the doors, and he asked people if you want to send your kids to a Jewish day school. And I said, what are you talking about? Public school is free. Jewish day school costs, whatever it costs. And these people had Lexuses and who knows what in the driveway. But Jewish day school, that costs money. You're not going to send money to Jewish day school. So I said, no problem. You send your kid, I pay the tuition. Okay? And that's what he did. That's how URA started. Okay, he literally went knocking door to door, got the kids, and then slowly but surely, once the kids were in day school, he said,
who was this?
Chaim Mintz.
Used to be here.
The Mashgiach of Staten Island. He used to be here in Israel, yeah. And he started, his son now took over the whole organization. Now,
What's the name of the organization?
URA.
now it's called URA.
O-O-R-A-H.
That's how it started. And when I was a Bachar in the Yeshiva, we used to collect every Purim for Kiruv V'Chaiken for this organization. The money literally went to day schools for these kids. Now, these kids were B'nai Ashirim. Their parents had money, they had money. They just didn't think it was like on top of their
Wasn't a
list.
priority.
It wasn't a priority. So now this is money going for Talmud Torah. It's not going for aniyim, it's going for Talmud Torah. Now you could argue the kids are aniyim, they don't have money. Kids are just because their parents are supporting them, but they're not giving them Talmud Torah. It's good, but you could have cases where it's going for Talmud Torah. And according to some shittas, actually the purpose of Meisser was hedya for Talmud Torah. Not for Aniyim, it was l'chatchila for Talmud Torah. So that's a so that's another one of the main purposes for
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
and actually some poskim say a person should divide his Meisser like that. Half the Meisser for Torah purposes and half the Meisser for poor people. You know.
What about other things like Bikur Holim, Hatzala, the Toronto Eruv?
Right, so these things are mitzvahs, they're for the purpose of mitzvahs. That's an excellent example. These are cases which are purpose for mitzvahs. It's not going to aniyim, okay, it's going for mitzvahs, important mitzvahs. And
Although you could argue those
Benefits.
benefit on
it benefits everybody. It benefits everybody. If you can't carry outside, nobody enjoys life like that. But you know, it's now there's another svar for that we'll get to in a moment. But those are going for mitzvahs, and again that goes into the shiloh. Could I use Meisser money for mitzvahs? He actually brings it down here. You could use your tzois for tipul ba'erev mekasef Meisser because it's a tzoyich harabim. So you want to say tzoyich harabim could be as better for a mikvah to build a mikvah is a tzoyich harabim. You could use it. There is a shiloh like this, which is a very important shiloh, which gets into the whole question of tuition. We mentioned that davar shebachayva, something you have a chiv to do, you cannot pay your Meisser money from, right? If I have a chayva myself, I can't pay Meisser money from. So, for example, let's say you're marrying off your kid, and like the minhag was throughout all the generations, the Mukhtanim get together and they are mechayiv themselves to give X amount of money towards for the chas and kala to live for the next 5 years or whatever it is. So it's like there was all kinds of promises that were made throughout the generations. So you mechayiv yourself. Now you want to use a Meisser money for that. So the question is, something which I'm mechuyev to do, I have a chayiv now, I owe now money. I owe money. I was mechayiv myself, I'm going to pay whatever X amount per month. So am I allowed to use my Meisser money to pay off my own chayiv? Now one could argue, it's all tzedakah. This guy has no money and he's using it because he's even sitting and learning, he's using it for learning, it's all tzedakah money. So the place can talk about this. Something which you have a chiv to do, you can't part yourself with Meisser. So the best way to do it is not to make a chiyuv. Or when you say you're going to do it, you say, I'm being mechayiv myself only for Meisser. So therefore you never made it necessarily a personal chayiv, or you could say, if I can't get it from Meisser, then I'll back it up with my own money. But you never made a chiyuv only from your own money, because if you did, then you get into this question, once I have a chiyuv, I can't use my chiyuv and part of it from Meisser money.
Not even in front of the Beit Din?
Huh?
You can't get in front of a Beit Din and say, look, I thought I could, now I realize I can't.
You mechayiv yourself to someone else. If I make a chayiv to you, money, I can't go to Bezin and be matir neder. Matir neder is only if I make a neder, I'm not going to eat chicken or something, I can matir neder. But by another b'chaver, if I have a chayiv money, I owe money. I'll be Bezin, they can be tevei me money, I owe the money.
So what if you pledge to a charity?
What if you make a pledge to a charity? A good question. I make a pledge, and now I say, hey, I'm going to use the money for this pledge. So one should be very careful, at least in the beginning he should have in mind that all those pledges he makes, so pledge is easier, a person normally has that in mind, that the pledge he makes is going to be from his stock-up fund, from his Meisser. He's not, because that he's allowed to do. He didn't have to buy.
But that's an assumption usually. I mean, it goes without, it seems pretty natural that when somebody says he makes a pledge,
that he's doing it from that. You can have that in mind, but the question, that's why pledge is easier. But when I make a chayvus, which I'm required to do, I'm making a shidduch, you're required, the other side saying, no, what are you putting down? Shidduch on, shidduch off, it depends how much, is coming out at the end. It's a serious business. It's a regular business deal you're making. You're making a business deal. Who said you could use your Meisser money for it? So this is a serious question. So, obviously a person that can't afford it for sure could use his Meisser money for it. But the guy does, if it's going to a legitimate cause, he could be, you have to be, there's a question whether he has to tell the other side. You have to tell the other side, I want you to know that I'm using my Meisser money for it, so this way it's clear up front. Otherwise, if you have a personal chiyuv, it's a question whether you could use your Meisser. So there's a halacha that a dvarim shebachayva, something which you have a chiyuv to do, you can't pater Meisser. So where is this relevant? We talked about taxes of the city. Taz says the tax of the city you can't use your Meisser money. Now he's not talking about the Toronto tax. He's talking about the taxes that were going for community services, Jewish community services. So the question is why that's stuck. It's going for the Erev, it's going for the mikveh, it's going to pave the roads, and the community needs paved roads. So could I use my Meisser money for that? So the Taz says you can't. Others say maybe you could. So that's a shayla. Could I use my Meisser money? Now what's the question? The question is, there's a chiyuv on every individual in the city to pay taxes. You come to the city, you live here, the community is mechayiv you to pay certain taxes. So the question is, could I use my Meisser money to pay those taxes? Or that's considered a dvarim shebachayva. It's like all living expenses. So I have a dvarim shebachayva. So I'm mechayiv to pay it. It's part of my living in the city. I have to pay what's put on me. So perhaps I cannot use that from my Meisser.
But a name benefit too.
And you benefit, sure, you benefit from it.
They benefit.
And you benefit, but that's not the question. The question is, it's a davar shebechayiv, something which I have a chiyuv to do. Am I allowed to use my Meisser from? Now this is a big discussion in the Achrayim.
And if you don't pay it?
What?
And if you don't pay it?
They could collect it from you. They could collect from you. They could send the police.
They'll
The old
sell
days,
your house.
they could take measures.
Tax sale on your house.
Tax, yeah. They could collect from you. So the question is, could I use my Meisser money for that? So there's a lot of points that get into this, but there is a logic that would say that I cannot use Meisser money for the Dvarim Shebachayva. So,
The suspense is killing me.
huh?
See, the suspense is killing me.
Next week.
So,
Cliffhanger.
Same bad station.
so like this. So we discussed once the question of tuition. Could I pay tuition from my Meisser money? Okay. Could I pay tuition from Meisser money? So this is part of the discussion, because the Shul ben Gamla set up that every city has to have chadarim, every city has to have a cheder for the kids to learn. Why? Because not everybody either could afford or were actually sending the kids to the cheder. They had other ideas. So they made a takana, Bisman Mishnah, they made a takana that there has to be, the city has to have certain things taken care of.
Today a lot of it goes to Goyim. Is that a problem? English teachers that are Goyim, they get money from your tuition.
So the takana is to set up institutions, cities. So the question is, could I use my Meisser money for it? So it works both ways. So this is a big shayla. One place it told me, well, it depends if it's a private school or a public school. Public, I don't mean city public school, but I mean, how's this school set up? You go to New York, there's a lot of chadarim. Some are funded from the city, and some are more privatized. A guy opens up, and you pay full tuition, you get your kid in, or not, you don't get your kid in. It's a private school, and it's funded by the parents. So that's not a chayva year. It's not a chayva year. But on the other hand, it's a personal chayv. You want to send your kid here. You want to go to a school. There are other schools. There's a school down the block you can send your kid to. You want to come to this special school? Pay up. Meisser? Don't do a Meisser. It's like you want to hire a piano teacher for your kid. You're going to pay Meisser for it? You want to have this luxury upgrade of coming to our special school? Pay up. Or go find a different school. It's a good argument. There's another school in the city which will take you. And whatever you'll pay. But you want to come to this school, you have to pay up. That's one argument. There's another argument to say, look, I wouldn't send my kid to this school if I can't afford it. I wouldn't send my kid to the school if I wouldn't pay the Meisser money. So now you get to the shayla of Dvarim Shebachayva. It's not really a chayva. I could send somewhere else, and it's a mitzvah I wouldn't have done anyways. And it's going to Talmud Torah. It's a good argument. There's an argument that I could use my money to send my kid to the school, because I would have sent him to a different school, which maybe would charge less, and this school charges more, but it has a good purpose. But there's another svara here. Now the other svara is that if it's a community school, which has chiyuvim, so the question is, what is my yischayvus to give tuition to this school? So Rabbi Miller holds that, well, it's a city institution. A city institution, it doesn't go by kid, it goes by per head. So in other words, a tax of the city, like the Erev, doesn't go how many kids you have in the household. It goes how many, if you live in the city, you have to pay X amount towards the city infrastructure, right? So you have to pay. So a school is part of that chiyuv that the Zayin Tuva Yair are allowed to put on a person. He says, let's say you have a gevir in the city. He has millions of dollars, but he has no children. And then you have a poor guy who has 20 kids, and he has no money. So he says the chiyuv goes, according to halacha, it's a shayla, you go for mois, or for your people, or for the mois. The Meisser, the chiyuv goes according to the city has a right to tax the person according to the income he makes. And according to the income he makes, and to give it out to the schools. And therefore, if you have someone that, even though he's not supporting the school, should support the school, and you have someone else who has kids in the school who can't afford it, he's not mechuyev to give as much. He has to give something, not mechuyev to give as much. So whatever the chiyuv is from the city, that you can't take off as Meisser. But everything beyond that, you could take off as Meisser. So if this guy, they're charging him $30,000 because he has 20 kids in the school, they're giving him a discount, but still, they're charging him $30,000. And according to the svara, he should only have to pay, let's say, $5,000. And the gevir should be given $30,000, so he'll be able to give the difference from Meisser. It's very hard to figure out how much that is. That's his svara. Others say that other things about it. Moshe has a tshuva. What?
So today, we don't have those sorts
But
of
we do have it, just people
arrangements.
don't give it. We do have it. There's a chiyuv on everyone to support his moistus.
Well, today they have the people who pay full tuition, subsidized people who get a subsidy.
Yeah, that's Robin Hood.
But
But
people who
that's,
have
you know,
no
you
kids at
take
the
from the rich and
school-
give to the poor.
Yeah.
But that's the system. But the system is not just people who are sending to the school. It's even people that aren't sending to the school.
Right.
They have a chiyuv. There are some people in the city that do that. They support all those moisters, what they could do. There are people that don't. So this is a larger debate. You know how to collect the general money from the populace, but for the personal parent that's paying and he wants to know how much could he use for tuition, how much could he use for Meisser, this would go into the cheshbon to try to figure that out.
Ani or school does.
Right?
Which is first, ani or a school?
So today it's not such a shiloh because we consider the school an ani. Because the money goes to the infrastructure of the school and a lot of bnei aniyim in the school, and it's considered a tzarich for aniyim also. Now, that's one cheshbon, but again, the shiloh is based on a dover shebachayva, something which I have a chiv to do. Perhaps I can't take Meisser off of. I can't have Meisser off of, but I have a chiv. Others argue, no, today, like you're saying, today the system doesn't work like that. Today, even though it should work like that, but it doesn't work like that, and the only people that support the school are the parents, and therefore, the parents have a chiyuv too, and make a taste so they can use Meisser from it. At the end of the day, it's a personal, individualized shiloh, because the lechatchila, avada, someone that could afford, and is making proper money, should not deduct his chiyuvim from Meisser. So if he has a chiyuv, just like it costs him money to take care of his children in all ways, and he's going to send the kid maybe even to college, and he's not going to take off Meisser for that. So sending him to cheder, he's going to take off Meisser for the same guy that's sending to is going to pay thousands of dollars to send him to get a degree. Is not going to pay the cheder. He's going to take off Meisser from the cheder. There's something off. So Avada, someone that could afford it, and he shouldn't use that for Meisser money. But someone's not struggling, he can't afford it. There's a lot of real heterim here to use at least a good portion of that money for Meisser. Interesting Shiloh Rabbi Moshe brings up. There's a lot more parts to this, but we're not going to be able to get into everything this week. But interesting Shiloh Rabbi Moshe brings up is a girls' school. Okay, a boys' school is a chiyuv Talmud Torah.
Turn up.
You don't know I'm going to say it.
They'll be throwing tomatoes.
So the Shiloh was asked for a girls' school. Could I give my Meisser a davar shebachayva? A boys' school, okay? Yeah, I have a chiyuv to send my kid to school, to Talmud Torah, to teach him. A chiyuv to teach my kid. Maybe I can't deduct Meisser from that. But a girl, I don't have a chiyuv to send her to school. So for sure, I should be able to deduct Meisser to send her to school. So what Moshe says in his tshuva, even though he says it's a good svara, but he says that since the government here is machayiv you to send the kid to school, and if you don't, I don't know how it is today, but in the old days they had a
Truancy officer.
Yeah, it would come and you would be in trouble. So you have to send your kid to a school. So therefore, he says there's a chiyuv to set aside Jewish schools, because otherwise you're going to send your kid to public school. So he says there's a chiyuv for chinuch to teach. In old days, the daughter could be taught in the house. And you could argue, I'll teach my kid in the house. What do I have to send? What do I have to send my kid?
You can today.
You could homeschool.
Homeschool.
So you have to know how it works today. That's what I'm saying. But this is what Moshe writes. So Moshe writes, you have a chiyuv to set up schools. You have a chiyuv to set up schools for the girls, and therefore that's also considered davar shebachayva that you have a chiyuv to do. Now, you said, okay, you could figure out, how much you would be mechuyev to pay and how much is extra and all that. Part of the argument is also how much is going for English studies, how much is going for Hebrew studies. Maybe I could deduct the Hebrew studies, but all in all, these are shilos that are very relevant questions. How much could I pay? And the question revolves around a davar shebachayva, something which I'm mechuyev to do. I cannot necessarily deduct that from my Meisser.
So there are two possible sources of the chayva in the case of education. One as a parent, and the other one is just as a member of the community.
Right.
As a parent, you've only got an obligation to educate your children until a certain age.
Right.
So I've heard it said that if your kid is, 6, 7, different ages, up to that age you've got an obligation to educate him, and beyond that you can use your Meisser money.
Right, so this is a question. To what age am I obligated? So Zman Gemara said 6 years old, past that. So but the price can bring down, even the Taz others that even past 6. Which father leaves his kid hungry after 6 years old? So therefore it's something which you would normally do anyways, and one shouldn't use his Meisser from that. Today it's a davar shebachayva. You'll be put in jail. It's a davar shebachayva till a certain age. The question is what age? In other words, it comes to a certain 25. Point. 25.
How do you get them out that early?
The question is, at what point are your responsibilities off that you can now use Meisser money for? Right? So Michael is saying 25. He's probably right.
What about grandchildren?
Grandchildren. There's a ganze Shaila. If a grandfather's mechuyev if the father can't afford to pay for his son, is the grandfather mechuyev to pay for the learning of his grandson. There are enough shittas that hold that he's not mechuyev that he can use Meisser money for that. But for a parent, the question is, at what point is he? So it's very hard to say today that he doesn't have a chiyuv. He doesn't have a chiyuv because he has to take care of all his kids' needs till a certain age. The question is what that age is exactly. But till a certain age, he has to take care of his kids' needs, and look, I have a shaila. My daughter's ready to go to seminary this year. Why should I send her to seminary? They charge who knows how much money, and she doesn't need it. She doesn't need it. Let her stay home. There's no chiyuv. I have no chiyuv to send her to seminary. On the other hand, everybody is going, and she's the only one not going. Is that called a davar shebachayva? Hard to say that's davar shebachayva, but this is a question. What am I mechuyev to do and I'm not mechuyev to? It's a valid question. A person has to understand what is chiyuv amar and what is chiyuv amarant. So again, lichatchila, if a person has, there are those poskim that say, not like the Taz, that even taxes of the city you could use your Meisser money for, because it's going. Now I don't know if they'll say that in Canada, where the taxes are going for things which are totally opposite from our public school, which promotes certain values and views, which it's a question whether you're allowed to send a kid to even nursery today, what they teach them. So these are difficult questions, and they go to support different things. But leaving that out, you live in Israel, and the money's going for good purposes. So there are places that say you could use your tax money for that. So again, a person that is able to is definitely not the best way to use your taxes because it's don't shebachayva. But a person that's struggling and can give taxes a different way, definitely there's what to rely on. To, especially tuition and other things. There's what to rely on. The shittas that hold that you would be able to. So these things like an erev or a mikvah that is a requirement in the city, a building fund at a shul. You have to have a shul in the city, and of course, money to build it. So all these things there's a question. Are these chiyuvim that are set aside by the Zayin Tuvei Yair that are not connected to the Meisser? Or one could argue that today it's very hard to be machayev a guy anything. Very hard to be machayev a guy. So Mamela, a person could agree at least that he'll use his Meisser money for such purposes, which is a tzarchei rabim. Tzarchei rabim one could use Meisser for. And one could get away with that, definitely, if necessary. So these are different shalos that come up, and next week we'll get a little more into this.
Technician.